On this one world, there was one man who was thoroughly convinced that somewhere along the way, reality itself had inadvertently left clues as to its own origins. And for many years, the man studied, speculated, ruminated, reflected, mused, theorized, imagined, guessed, and all sorts of other related stuff about it. But every time he felt he was getting close to some discovery, it was like something weird would slip up on him in the night while he was in bed asleep and grab him real hard by the clavicle, or poke him real bad in the funny bone, or do something that, like, throw off his concentration. Leastwise, that's the story he put out. There's no problem with the ordinary seeing the world literally. They're supposed to. And there's no problem with mystics seeing it metaphorically. They're supposed to. But the problem for a man who wants it all is in doing either one exclusively. Another example of how life maintains its balance outside the jungle. One man couldn't spell, so he had only friends who couldn't read. P.S. On a much larger scale, this is similar to how civilization itself keeps everyone more or less under control and reasonably pacified. P.S. SOS. On a smaller, more personal level, this is also how each man's mind attempts to keep his thoughts in line and tolerably sane and sterile. And now some academic news. The scores from Logic and Reason. Logic 101, Reason 203. A man who can fool you can fool himself. And a man who can fool himself can fool you. But a man who can fool neither, and only he knows it, can, even before the season is in, go a-gathering fools in May. Skip, skip. Oh yeah, Reason wants a rematch. Another view of the situation. Religion's purpose is to encourage the collective to do better, and mysticism's is to do so for the individual. And note that while religion does not offer specific, practical, and personal assistance to the individual, neither does mysticism. Another topographical survey. Even beyond the confines of ditches and sanctuaries, the simple still fail to realize that their mental picture of a superior external God is point blank, in your face, quite persuasive, suggestion that man himself is constantly capable of greater intellectual things. And yet, the habitual minded find it always much easier to fret over possible ghosties lurking about outside the house than to go look out the window, even if they have to carve out a window. It is from this expanded understanding that some out-of-your-grasp thinkers have noted that a fully conscious man is neither reverent nor ear, where proper. Think about it later. The effort described once again. If you're not individually striving to extend your own consciousness, you're whoring for somebody. Man's mental march most often proceeds along lines such as this. First, he has the idea. Then he believes that it must be valid and of importance. Next, he believes that everyone else should see it and agree with him, and that those who don't should be made to somehow suffer for it. Sound familiar? After pursuing the news of the day, one man turned and said, "I'm not much concerned over social problems, just so long as they don't interfere with my social life." Instead of this being between a man and the external conditions, it could have been between a bio-survival voice and an extended one. One guy's motto: speak plain, think plain. Give me 6 cream-filled and 4 glazed to go. Okay, the facts. Plain. Plain and simple. Everyone could be more conscious, more alert, more mentally and personally aware of what's going on in life and in themselves. But rather than making the individual effort necessary, even assuming that they discovered what it was and how to do it, it remains a heck of a lot easier to just talk about it sometimes. And indulge in certain ingestible drugs and related dreams. One reason that the simple are such family folks is that by producing physical offspring, they can feel they've at least done something creative, something that will leave proof of their having existed. Do note, however that is, unnoticed it normally is, that in the fantastic world of man, physical procreation is not the only type possible. One man says that the most mysterious and exciting thing that's ever happened to him is that one day, just recently, after returning from his morning run, he found his car in a slightly different position from how he always parked it, and that he had the only set of keys with him. He says he hopes now a similar thing might occur regarding his own mind some morning after he returns from a night's sleep. In the wild, the big cat rules the pack, while in the city, no one is quite so certain. So, they make up reasons, titles, and standards to compensate. While this is normal, necessary procedure for civilization and the collective, it offers no joy whatsoever to an individual wanting to actually be somebody. One seeker of fame says he'll only be sure he made the grade if, after he dies, books begin to appear questioning whether he actually existed or not. Neurobibliographer's note. This approach will not work on ideas. After some years of pondering the beautiful and intricate dance between the major controlling forces of human life and their best and worst features, a certain man finally said certainly to himself, physical death will just knock you down, but the mind will kick you in the balls. Those civilians charged with the running and upkeep of the public ballroom are programmed to automatically react negatively to such observations. Tickets please, sheep and cows live on their knees. But see, that's one of the compensating factors of having to be human. You can rebel against it, and yet the forces that made you so don't mind. Tickets please. Oh, I'm sorry. Full, you say? Well, here, all the rest of you can have my seat. According to a ne'er-repeated version of the Socratic legend, after the old man learned to read, he revised his earlier epigram so that it said, "The literate life ain't worth living." Don't ask me, tickets please. One day, a small child, passing as a lad, pulled up short and thought, what if the whole world is on a merry-go-round, and what if you saw it? What good would it do you? This seemed to make him feel some better, him not being an offspring of a mystic. Ordinary consciousness is the state in which it is controlled and directed entirely by life. The extraordinary variety is where it is otherwise, at least in part. And I do wish you'd quit throwing up terms like rhetorically not possible. Where the hell do you think we are anyway? And now, medieval and more so update. It is everyday man who gives self-fulfilling life to the aphorism, by our own ends are our ends shaped. And don't be bothering me with your version using the word destiny instead of the second end. Public political notice. It is the pea-brains of the world who run the world. Correction. It is the serious and dependable pea-brains of the world who run the world. Man was given a great mission, but contrary to the many confusing, convoluted notions of religion and other of his institutions, the mission is simply to be man. So pondered a certain chap. You know, one of the few really petty-ass characteristics of life is that whenever you talk about it, it immediately seems to think that you're talking about it. You can look in a man's eyes and see his genes, if you have genes that can see. Okay, the simple version of an earlier item for all of you simple folks. If you repeat the words of others, you're a $1.50 flea-ridden prostitute of the first order, regardless of your sex, education, or height. And an official spokesperson for the simple folks responds, don't you think you're being just a little too hard on and demanding of ordinary people's normal intellectual operations? And you know something? He's partially correct, as regards my being either too hard on or too demanding of a routine man's desire to think independently and creatively. But be that as it may, if that sleazy dress and pilfered perfume does fit, you're still a cheap whore and you know it. One guy could think up new thoughts as fast as he could think. For some reason, he says now he's working on being able to dispatch them with equal haste. The nephew of a certain mystical postal employee nicknamed his mind X-Lax. The normal, healthy cadence of life doesn't really mind if you periodically lay down on the job, just so long as you feel adequately guilty. In the beginning was ordinary human existence. Then came man's mental life. After that, all of his civilizing institutions, all of his civilizing instructions and directives. And sometime later on arrived mysticism, non-standard information. And it came in two forms, the positive and the negative, or critical. Also, perhaps of further interest, is the fact that the first one never got here. Today's show business news. One man could do absolutely striking imitations of everyone but himself. One way you can tell that you're a real mystic, you know, compared to like those part-time weekend ones, the way is that you don't see anyone who understands as much as you do. And you don't have any particular feeling about it one way or the other. A man in a nearby city calls his normal thought patterns Fido, and his dog is really proud of the old geezer. Here, boy, here, bring me your ticket. A man stood defiantly in front of life's main castle and began to shout, "Give me drugs or give me death," and Life stuck its head out of an upper window and shouted back, "I've given you both." And that really made the guy mad. Many viewers want to hear a certain myth from earlier this year reread, and though they never did remember to request it, I will now reintroduce it in an expanded version. The mother of all myths. Once everyone knew a secret. Most forgot it. A few didn't. The first group did right. The second bunch did even better than right. The end again. News from the catwalk. If ordinary men's thoughts are fashion, then those of the non-aligned are jewel-encrusted four-dimensional animal skins. Work that body, you neural muscles. And now, our engineering thought for the day. The only way to ever be yourself is to stop being what you are now. In a faraway galaxy, on an obscure world, there is a dangerous legend that tells the local beings that they too, like so many others in this universe, are apparently carrying some sort of curse picked up shortly after their creation. And in their particular case, it is that most devious, captious, and alluring of vexations, habit. Meanwhile, back on Earth, a reasonably intelligent and educated Irish wolfhound heard the tale and responded, "Why would any creature think of habit as being a curse? What gives of you people?" Arf. That was an ad lib. Hey, talent will out. But not on my carpet. There is, in this other solar system, a new unnamed theme park which has different types of rides for different types of people. There are still those thrill, pants-wetting rides for the simple physical folk, but there are also rides of for the more intellectually inclined, which offer similar sensations instead for their minds. I don't have their descriptive brochure here with me at this moment, but I'm sure you can probably easily picture what those ladder top rides are.
Yeah.
One guy says that thinking about extraordinary matters sometimes makes him feel good, while at other times it makes him feel even worse than is normal for him. He asks which approach we think he should specifically pursue. And I, responding on all of your behalves, replied that it was probably none of our business or even within the possible scope of our knowledge. And this seemed to so take him aback and by surprise that there is some possibility that he actually learned something from it. Extraordinary, if true. Trying to meet the challenge of being here, one man declared to himself, "Life is a knot, and I am Alexander." But then suddenly thought, all those we hold heroic are always dead, which in fact transmits a message not normally perceived by those so holding. Later, over some dry toast, he pushed this insight into the gray gooey area of his own intertwined cortical strands and was further rewarded. One of the often overlooked beauties of the mind is that it is constructed so that it can dream of walking so as to keep from having to. A man sat alone by a full-length nude mirror and reflected. The simple are easily entertained, but how about the and at this point he seemed immovably stuck. One elementary school teacher's advice to the nippers: the way to get around worrying about being more conscious and alert than you normally are is the same method you employ to rid yourself of everyday, unavoidable annoyances. You simply dismiss them as imaginary at worst and irrelevant at best. Some of the short ones were more pleased with this notion than others. The physical and mental lives of man compared using musical allegory. The physical, classical. The mental, jazz. One fully notated, the other apparently improvised. I kind of hate to ruin it for you serious fans of metaphor, but in all fairness to the more alert in the audience, I must specifically draw your attention to the inclusion above of the word apparently. Another picture of Homo sapien, this planet's freest creature. Being a human capable of thinking is life's way of rattling your cage. Some neurosexual news. One transcendentally inclined man gave his mind a good visual going over and said, "Well, you ain't much to look at, but you do give good talk." Pulled up, extremely short. That's the title. Learning how to be a mystic from a book is like trying to pick up fresco technique from Pope Julius after he was dead. One, two, three. The way in which the ordinary call knowledge, what the ordinary call knowledge affects the few is like a man who owns fleas finding out they have dogs. Yeah. Would you like me to do that again? The way in which what the ordinary call knowledge affects the few is the same way that would be if a man who had fleas discovered that they had dogs. And of your rights, how can I become part of the few? Or is it too late? Or must you be born into it? Or is there some other reason blocking me that I'm not aware of? If the answer to any of these is yes, please spare me the pain of responding. Yours, etc. One summer day, a certain kid stopped under a tree and thought, what if there are people who can see colors outside the range of our local physical spectrum? How would those with ordinary standard sight ever know of the first group's ability? Or how could they ever prove it to everyone else should the attempt seem desirable? Please spare us the possible discombobulation potential in a comprehensive reply. Done. If the sane civilized mind is like a domesticated animal, then enlarged consciousness is like a reinvented wild beast set free again. Some city news. It's a great relief when you don't know anything to believe that no one else knows anything either. Let's hear it for the city now before it comes around to punch your ticket. One man has a new, astounding idea, but he won't tell anyone what it is. He says if he does, it will no longer be new and astounding. Once you begin to overcome the outdated desire to be mentally judgmental, there is one final person, thing, something about which you should cease to be critical. You may guess who or what it is if you want to. The son of a certain mystic one day mused, why is it so difficult for individual men to see that their only possible assistance comes from themselves? And after a brief time had passed, he further thought, do yard ducks see flying wild ones as supernatural? Does death envy life? Are not all heroic images but present reflections from man's future? And are not still a few permitted to peek over the horizon? And he was glad to be the son of a mystic. The rhyme of the wild, terrifying children of the planet Neurino. Oh, a stable man is a happy man. A stable man is a miserable oaf. Quick, officer, keep those kids away from me. When it came to him putting his own mind through its full gymnastic potential, one mystic's personal slogan was, born to boogie. How about another myth? Maybe the cousin of all myths. Implying the distinction again between ordinary people and people who won't settle for being ordinary. And remember, as always, we're talking about in the area of consciousness. Not physically, because you can be non-standard physically, either through great effort or through no great effort. Well, either through doing something extreme like lifting weights 12 hours a day, and eating whole cows at a sitting, and getting to the point that you've got biceps the size of George Foreman's stomach. Or you can be extraordinary physically by doing nothing, which what makes the survival level of existence so, I don't know, surviving. Because you can do it either way. That is, you can go lay on the couch for the rest of your life and lay there and eat and get up. I don't know what the world's record is, but surely if you could live long enough, maybe get to the point that you weigh 1,700 pounds. Either way, you have done something extraordinary. Back to something that could be of some use to fairly sane people. The distinction between the ordinary and those who will not settle for being ordinary, but remember we're talking about above the simple line of survival. We're talking about the world of consciousness, alertness, the mental side of man, known to your forefathers and nephews as the spiritual side often. I know I've hit on this in passing, but do you ever consider why that people, and they still do it of course, love to say the spiritual side of man rather than go ahead and call it what it is, the mental side? Well, the mental side is far too crude. There is a synonym for that. Obvious. in your face. I mean, the spiritual side, you can say, wait a minute, there's no, why do you keep talking about the spirit of man? Where's the spirit? All you're talking about is his mental activity. And they go, oh, no, no. You say, well, where is the spirit side? And due to the beautiful arrangement that life has done here with these floral display, with our, with the human construct, they take that as being proof itself of the existence and the importance of the spiritual. That's when you say, well, nobody can find it. Suddenly popes and everyone looks like Mussolini in profiling. Like, oh, I told you. Now, you little dumb Philistines. There's the proof of it. It was a sidestep, but that doesn't mean it had nothing to it. Back to the distinction and the myth I was going to tell. The distinction between the ordinary and those who will not settle for being ordinary, sometimes known as would-be mystics and etc. The ordinary look only to others for help. Would-be mystics look somewhere else. That's fast enough. I want to get over with it so we go back and expand it. There's the myth. If you're ordinary, if you had any hesitation, if you wanted any sort of supporting evidence that might suggest that you are ordinary, is to consider the damn near all-encompassing extremes that covers to say that you look for assistance to others. Now, there's a reason before I start into the specifics, this is not due to some sociological flaw in man, much less any psychological, that is, individual miswiring, some trauma. It has to do, as always, from the basement. It has to do with the fact that man is a territorial, family-oriented, he is a pack animal below the level of consciousness. And therefore, it is normal, to say the very least. It is predictable, it is expected that any ordinary person will not only seek social companionship, parentheses, recluses, hermits, even those in a parent excuse like those pursuing a monastic life are looked upon as being out of the mainstream, properly so. But especially those that just seem to do it on their own, that just say, well, screw civilization, I don't like people. That is not natural. No matter their excuse, no matter their talent, no matter if they go away and write some kind of great book that's discovered after they are dead and they're looked on after the fact as being a philosopher. They were out of the mainstream. It is natural to seek companionship. It goes further, though. Then it gets into, as should be expected by now, it gets into and helps fuel a level that increasingly has little to do specifically with physical needs directly. That is, the intellectual life of man, the spiritual life, the social life. But we're not talking about man being a social animal. Quick sidestep, because they're there every day, but just one comes to mind here. We're taping this in that wonderful 7th month of that just strikingly splendid year of 1994, and there is one of the world's last great, at this time, living tyrants died, which I guess takes him from the classification of a living. At any rate, just in the last few days, one of the more famous of this world's one-man rulers died. I mean, a man obviously with the intelligence of a warm tomato, which by now you should know the point. The man was a pea brain, but he was an aggressive pea brain. I know that some of the people that might hear this by accident or sit on TV, then they think we are back to social criticism. But go out, find those gorillas running herds. Go find the lions that are the alpha wolves of the pack. That's better than changing metaphors. You do not go and find, or the elephant leading the pack, you do not find that he's necessarily the elephant in the herd that can do that thing on one thing, or get on a ball and walk. It's not required. All he's got to do is be the meanest son of a bitch. That's it. So, anytime I bring up I do not do it, as you should know, I mean, it's not even worthwhile. It's not an attack on politics or those who run the world, but they are, that's just one of their characteristics, they are, in one very specific sense, very untalented people. They just are, and especially intellectually. And it's not that hard to see. Then ordinarily you would have to turn your head away, because if it was just put to you point blank and I could make people see it, or for some reason I wanted to, that those who run the world probably don't have any more intelligence than the poorest relation that you have. Some Uncle Elmer that lives in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Or, just somebody that you don't think much of. Of course, we could really get dirty and realize that they got no more intelligence than you do on your worst day. And you think, no. No, this guy's running the country. He's one of the strongest men in the world. But anyway, I was going to point out just every day he writes the material. We have a man that, if you can see it all you do is see a film. You don't have to see him in person. Been ruling with an iron hand, as they put it, controlling the whole country. His statues everywhere. Little old short, dumb-looking fucker like most of them are, but these huge statues that they always shave 20 years off his age, 50 years off of him, and add about 10 feet in height. And he's standing there looking heroic. Well, he just died. And you got pictures. Now, wait, we're not laughing at him or the people. And they're showing now, not just the stooges, because they're not actually crying. They're backstage fighting over who might take charge. So I'm not just talking about the normal run of the sycophants that now going, ooh. We're talking about now the people. They're outside the palace. Thousands of people, men, women, people dressed up. People that look sane, and they are. They're just ordinary people. They're out there moaning, ripping at their hair and just beating on their chests and crying. And you could, I'm not going to try to push it much further, you could see that as being, should we say, at least questionable? Like, this is humanity, this is us in the 20th century. Now, get past that, because the same thing, I mean, that's the only place that they got the idea, was here. And where did it get the idea? From the baddest son of a bitch and tiger in that part of the jungle. It ended up here, and he dies, and the rest of your little brain cells go, oh my God, oh my God. See, it's not so funny now, is it? Now, so you're not sneering and laughing like, that is funny. Those people crying and moaning like, and they're people that kill themselves every time one of these tyrants, one of these kings die. If you don't know it, they're people that actually kill themselves. Like, well, I just can't live without great ruler so-and-so. And you think the man was, some kind of deranged bonbon. He would have killed you in a minute, and now you're going to commit suicide. No. Take an ordinary man. Take the kind of man that could criticize or laugh at that and think he was personally laughing at somebody. Snatch away a part of the supporting ideas, and they come externally. Snatch away his wife, his mother, his job. Let him lose his business. Let him lose something, or other thing, make him lose his religion. I'm getting a little more esoteric, but this can happen. Make him lose faith in something inside, and you can forget laughing at these little dumb people over there that don't know any better. Hey, if you're laughing at them, you don't understand anything. They only got the idea from you. That is up here, because you got this at that level. You got in conjunction with them. That's what the collective thinking is. That's the reason you laugh at it. You laugh, ha ha, boy, I'm glad it's not me. At any rate, what were we talking about? The ordinary look externally. It is all these news items and some of the stories and stuff I make up, if you listen to it a certain way, it would sound as though it is some kind of continual running or periodic drive-by shooting at civilization, politics, religion, everything else. It is in the sense that if you're ever going to try to be somebody, there is absolutely, it's not theory and it's not some kind of twisted retelling of some old philosophy or would-be mystical system. There is nowhere to look out there, because to look out there is natural to start with. It is normal to start with. And how you expect to ever do the extraordinary if you're going to do the basic ordinary thing? Because that's the first thing you do. That's the first thing you did when you were a baby. It's called Mama. And what's the first thing that people do now once they're 50 years old? And heads of corporations, vice president, assistant secretary under the great leader. No matter who you are, you get up every day and you're going, Mama, Ma. I know it doesn't seem that simplistic anymore. But think about all ordinary sane people. Well, at least we take too wide a step over that right quick now, and you think yeah. How about this? From any sane view, I have already overstepped it. Because from any sane view, you're back to this, that just a good spokesman for reality, just ordinary everyday reality, would say, doing his part, he could say, well, if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly, to say you've gone too far is an understatement, because you've just gone off the edge. We have to rely on one another. No one person knows everything, and then go on and on from there, which you cannot deny it at the three-dimensional level. Because they can say, well, if you're going to say that, are you going to tell me that you know more about, all right, for instance, if your air conditioner breaks down, can you go down and fix it? Well, if you can you do it like in less than 2 weeks? If your car, can you rebuild a transmission? What if our space program broke down and you cannot get cable, you cannot get communications begin to break down because we cannot get up new communication satellites? Are you going down and run NASA? Or what if we're working on some new mathematical problem? Do you know it all? And of course the answer to all of that is no. So then they go, But more than that. Now that seems pretty obvious. But then they can go to what is a little less materially obvious, but even seems to be of greater importance and additionally bulletproof from ordinary criticism. That is to say, wait a minute, besides these specifics regarding technology, air conditioning, automotive mechanics, beyond that, are you going to tell me that you know more about running governments, for instance, or you know more about how people should behave, or that how we could run a religion, the kinds of things that give people, ordinary people, some sense of purpose in life? Are you going to tell me you know more than that? And of course then the answer is, yeah. Well, I thought a little surprise might be in order. See, Baptist ministers, when the crowd begins to kind of doze off, they'll do something kind of exciting like, fart, or do something to get their attention, or mispronounce a word. Wait a minute, I can do that. The ordinary look, having no choice, it is as genetic as us being human. The ordinary mind looks continually, just accepts it. It doesn't go out seeking. It does not seem like an active move on their part. It is just a part of being alive that other than you getting up and doing just the minimally required things, which varies from person to person and from time to time with the same person, but other than having to actually get up out of bed yourself, unless of course you're rich enough and like most of us wish we could be, and pay somebody to come lift you up. Your man comes and lifts you up and carries you downstairs and bathes you and takes care of your intimate needs, chews your food for you or works your mouth. Other than that, you understand. Other than that, we must do. Ordinary people, you must do that which is minimally required to get you through the day, such as get up out of bed, go downstairs, put on your clothes, drive to work, carpool, you understand, every day. It's just the minimum requirement, such as to kind of move about. If you just shuffle to the bathroom, go to the bathroom, shuffle over and open a can of soup, you do that. You'll do that which is required for survival if you're sane. But beyond that, without people analyzing it and seeing any importance to it, after that, what do you do for you if you're ordinary and sane? Well, first I'll say the minimum again. But what people do without realizing it is they seek to even take the minimum and whittle it down. That they look for assistance. And I can point out the obvious, which is not the point, and it's not their fault. It's not a conspiracy. But people for years, well, they still do, they look to religion for a great deal, for direction. They especially look to government now. They'll look almost anywhere. And it's beyond I pick out two obvious or two easy things to describe government and religion, and it's more than that, but it's harder. It is less specific to expand it beyond concrete examples. But once you see it, you know it's true. Your mind itself, if it wasn't government and religion, which are two names representing two operations in life, it'd be two other things or four other things. And they are there, but they're just not that specific. Mentally, you get up in the morning. Mentally, you're wired when you're born. That mentally, you look around. Like, well, what do I do now? You do not put it that way. It is not necessarily that specific. And it takes it takes a very unusual mind to even be able to realize that. Because ordinary minds, if you told them that and got their attention to start with and said, when I hear something important or you might find useful, they go, okay, and you say, at the intellectual level, from the day you're born, you continually look without. You look to others for instruction, for direction. An ordinary mind. Are you ready? You should be able to do it by yourself. The ordinary mind, being as sincere and serious and listen to it, it will go. Now what's it doing? It's giving some credence, it's giving at least consideration to what I said, another person. There's their proof. Well, of course, if I was doing some kind of mystical test, there's my proof. Somebody says, do you know anything extraordinary? I'm just using me rhetorically. Do you know anything mystical? Well, I might. Would you tell me? No. Well, I might. And they go, okay, would you? No, they've already failed the test. Which doesn't mean anything, but they should know that they failed the test. You see how it works? See, if they'd been a mystic, they wouldn't ask for help. And if they did ask for help, they'd realize, uh-oh, I stepped back in it. You are obliged to look out, to look to others for intellectual assistance. And you've got to take intellectual assistance to make any use out of it to the widest possible extreme. The more civilized you are, I know the more entangled it is, because now you look to others to an inescapable degree for even survival at the non-mental level. That is, most of us are not any longer out ourselves planting food, building our own houses. That in a sense, it's not that important, but I wanted you to see that it is now becoming more and more intertwined and less a discrete juncture between the mental life and the physical life. That now mentally you are, at least in part, dependent for survival. Was that crude and complex enough? When you go to the grocery store and trade your money for a can of green beans instead of growing green beans, you are intellectually now, you're partially intellectually dependent for physical survival. It's neither good nor bad, but I just wanted you to understand it's what makes it more fun. To the dumb and simple, I guess it makes it harder to see. Don't you want more? You want brackets within what should have been a parenthetical? Yeah. Try this. If we suddenly had a would-be mystic from 1,500 years ago, from somewhere reasonably attuned to our part of the world, some Anglo-Saxon, somebody from Europe, anybody that could talk this language, and we brought them here now, and they listen to this, they go, God, you people got it. I mean, it was hard enough to deal with it back, in 600 BC when I was dealing with this. But what have you people done? Into brackets, back to the parenthetical, or jump back into the mainstream. The ordinary, are pack animals. They are genetically pack animals. Physically, the proof of it being civilization, if you needed proof, but they simply are. And to foolishly believe in any way that you are immune to that intellectually, it's just a set of blinders from which you will never escape. You'll never see anything past that if you do not realize, and there's no exception, it doesn't matter what you're talking about, religion, politics, your apparent culture, if you're from another country, if you sit here and you feel as though you're nationalistically more an Albanian than you are an American, or you feel that you're more a Catholic or a Jew, whatever it is, anything that your mind tells you, yeah, hey, I'm that kind of guy. All you're saying is, I'm a moose, I'm a sheep, I'm a cow. That's why I keep saying it. It's not that Catholics are cows or Jews are sheep or that Muslims are, wild elk. But as long as you identify with pack traits here, ask yourself rhetorically, where did you get off thinking, well, yes, I'm a little more conscious, I'm a little more insightful. Oh yeah, now I'm an insightful Muslim. Yeah. I'm a little more awake than the average Italian. No, you're not. As long as your intellectual food is still coming directly, which that is, from the trough of herdism, that you're still coming from the survival level wherein men are pack animals and are rightfully hanging out together. Rightfully. You're an idiot. You're a fool. You're deranged. You're a mutant. Unless you knew what you were doing. To wander off from the pack, to be a hermit. That's why I keep picking on it in a certain way. Just for an ordinary hermit is a mutant. But then not to realize that it is feeding every thought you ever have. I don't care how high class it can be. Well, what I want to do is escape the mundane, routine, unenlightened life of man. I'll go join a monastery. I beg your pardon? Theatrics sometimes are, I don't know, they really help not at all. Okay. If you do not understand that that's why it is easy, that's why it's efficient. I don't mean easy in a derogatory sense. It is efficiency on the hoof, pardon the term, to go ahead and to see it and to be able to dismiss. Are you about to say everything? That's funny, I was. I don't know how you knew it. Everything that ordinary people have ever said, have ever known, or that know right now. You mean right now? Well, yeah, just then. But what if they learned something new just now? You mean now? Yeah, well, it's too late. If everybody else knows it, it was available. One of I know it, sometimes it doesn't seem to grab some of you, but that's part of just one of the beautiful side structures of the human mind is that it still wants to jump in and say, wait a minute, that's not true. Because there is information being learned right now, and it will pick out very specific intellectual information such as in mathematics and the theories of science. And so that could be of some importance. You can't just dismiss it. So much for parentheticals for the night. Back to the main road where it can be, I guess, a little bit more obvious when it doesn't make any sense. It is efficiency. Well, there's no way to prove this. It was kind of a flip statement for those of you that might be able to grasp it when I said it gets to be the height of efficiency to finally understand. No rancor. There's no judgment. It's neither here nor there. You simply understand that what it is that's got me here, there is no collective information that will turn into fingers. No. It's all irrelevant to this. It may not be irrelevant to getting your car fixed at the best price. It may not be irrelevant to keeping your house cool if you like to live indoors and you happen to find yourself residing in Santa Fe. But insofar as it has anything to do with this, which we are now talking about something beyond the level of consciousness, beyond the survival level, put quite directly, it's just that nobody knows nothing. Everybody says they do. Many people say they do. The more that they don't know anything, the more they are inclined, due to the pack drive genetically of man, they band together. And they come up with schools of philosophy. They come up with religions. One man doesn't know anything. Hey, let's get together here. But we got 6 billion followers professing whatever flag they're waving. You fill it in. Some religion, some political theory, anything. All it's saying is wolf pack, and then they got a number on it, but they call it other things. They wave it. And what they're saying is, yes, individually, we may not know shit, but hey, there's 6 billion of us. And they can all stand shoulder to shoulder. Everybody wave their flag, then come up with a theme song, then get a slogan, then get a motto. And if they got that many of them, if there's another wolf pack over here with another name, they go, Here, we must take great exception to your claim. And if they got 6 billion, this other group got 1 billion. You see, that's back to the cheap shots that ordinary minds take at such things, if you recall. They're saying, how dare someone call himself a religion and then hold an inquisition? That's it. That's why it does happen. It's not through the folly of the religion. It's not through the stupidity or the hypocrisy of men that they band together and say, well, we have a religion now, and our religion, our main tenet is God loves you, each and every one of you. Oh yes, anyone who doesn't believe that, please line up over here to be shot in alphabetical order. And the ordinary critics, ordinary minds say, well, something is grossly amiss. That's a sign of health. What else would a wolf pack do? What else does a lion pack do when deers come into the neighborhood? What else does a lion pride do when a new pride comes in? If the head lion can whip the apparent leader of the new pack, pride. Those who think there's any difference are civilized. Those who think there's any difference between religious struggles, political struggles, struggles of morality, struggles of issues. Nobody seemed to like the guy that said he, after he perused the daily news, said he wasn't all that concerned about social problems, as long as those problems didn't affect his social life. Anyone, if you think there's some actual operational distinction between conflicts of theories, no matter how, as philosophers used to say, how highfalutin they appear to be, how spiritual, how otherworldly, how holy, how transcendental. If you think that there is any difference between the conflicts that seem to arise, no matter how foolish, from your view or from any one view, it seems that there are conflicts in men's theories and their pictures of how things should be and their models of the universe and their paradigms for the future. If you think that there is any difference between that and two cats fighting over your backyard, you is, as philosophers used to say, an idiot. I'm sorry, no, that was cheap. Most idiots do come cheap. You are civilized. You do understand that, besides my little convoluted humor there. You're not an idiot. You are civilized. You are ordinary. You're the kind of people we want running the cities, running the world, that will look you dead in the eye as best they can, if it came to this. And you go, do you really think, you're the president here of X country, you're the head of such and such religion. And they go, yes. You got there legitimately. We won't go into that. It's another, and you say, all right, the conflicts that you see between the theories you have of what is the proper behavior of man. So we'll straddle everything from politics to religion. That you just ask this man. You say, you are certain, you've given enough thought, enough study, that there's no doubt in your mind that the picture you have of how man should be, how human life should be arranged and the way in which it should be moving, there's no doubt in your mind that the picture you have, the notions you have, the philosophies and theories to which you abide are superior to, and that there is a real difference in those that apparently distinguish themselves from you. That there is a reality, there is a higher conflict going on here between these kinds of ideas and philosophies. And the man looks you dead in the eye as best that kind of man can, and he goes, yes. Now, he's the sort of man you want running churches and religions and the world. He is a pea-brain. And at one level, he knows it's bullshit. I'll go back to that one since most of you really seem to hate that one. Or you treat it with, I don't know, just sparkling indifference. Is that could be the difference, another one between the ordinary and those who would strive or who won't accept being ordinary, is that the ordinary know it's all bullshit. And those who will not settle for being ordinary, they see it as too, and they still don't like it. And the ordinary just, hey, what the hell are you all so upset for? The pea-brains of the world realize, in a sense, not verbally, that, hey, I know I'm a pea-brain, but hey, I'm the president. Yeah. Who are you? And you realize, well, I barely got a pot to piss in, so he goes, yeah, I don't know anything. I don't take it seriously. What the hell are you? And suddenly you kind of feel silly with your little red marks or whatever it is on here and your turban and You know, waving your thing and a little tattoo that, if you get close, says, "I'm a mystic." And there's the president. There's the head of this corporation. Overweight, cigar, burps in your face, 3 or 4 women back here, or men, or whatever. And he says, "Yeah, I don't know anything. All this stuff about what the hell life about? Are you crazy? Yeah, I'm in charge. I'm the president of your country. And I don't know shit. So what? I don't take it seriously. I mean, I do in public, but I don't take it seriously. What's your problem?" And there you stand. All these years being a good weekend warrior. Well, I'm off on a greater adventure. And he says, "You're nuts. There's no greater adventure. This is all bullshit. Now get out of here." And then he goes back to doing it. And if you're a weekend mystic, you wander off and you try to forget it. And you think, wait a minute. He was just whistling in the dark. He was just trying to put up a brave front.
No.
At the survival level, at the sane, everyday, necessary level, it is all civilized, non-essential. Run it past us again 20 more times, we'll still never notice. Bullshit. The attempt to do this, you simply got to understand it and give up any sort of struggle with it. I mean, if you don't understand it, you are forever, to varying degrees, standing there trying to piss on the parade, trying to make fun of it, giving it the finger, thinking, well, he's right. It's damn, the world's run by idiots. Well, sure it is. And if you criticize it, what the hell do you think you're doing? Well, I don't actually have a seat in Parliament. No, but you're what they used to call like the backstage cabinet. I'm not a member of the government. No, you're just an advisor. You're an informal advisor. You didn't like that either? Try it all up here. Well, listen to these ideas people have. People say that the whole purpose of life is to get somewhere, to be important, to be respected. They're crazy. The point is to be more conscious, to wake up a little, to see the folly of life. Is anybody listening to themselves? To see how silly this all is. I just went through the point of I point out the silliest person in the world. A president, a politician, a guy in charge. There's nobody sillier than that. But if you got him in the right way, that is your own neural section up here, he knows it's silly. That's part of why kings, I've already pointed this out, kings and politicians and priests and everybody that has some position of authority, that's why they go through all this rigmarole of dressing up in funny suits and doing all kinds of things and having a title this long and all these capital letters of His Excellency, His honor. Because he's a pea-brain. It's just bullshit. But in a sense, they know it and they understand, well, come on, guys. Give me a long name. Get a band here. Let's get a new theme song like Hail to the Pea-brain. Da, 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 da. That's part of it. But if you don't get away from that, you're part of the procession. You can say, well, no, I'm not. I'm standing out there pointing at them.
Yeah.
I'm standing out there with my tongue stuck out. But the point is, your tongue is like doing it on a coal fire hydrant, in Buffalo in December. You're stuck with the parade. Well, yeah, but I'm making fun of it. Yeah, and boy, it's having a real impact. I mean, next thing you know, your tongue will never come off that pole.
Yeah.
And that covers our Empire State philosophy. Sometimes I'm going to fool everybody and get to the point that I set up.